and time in the society. Our relationships are managed and built according to the various rights, rituals, customs and beliefs in our religious text. Lord Ram, Sita, Radha, Krishna, Gopis, Satyavan, Savitri, Gandhi and local ladies etc. find divine treatment in many novels of Radha Ram. हम लोग जय रामचंद्र जी का कथन है वो deliberately suggests that India's fight for freedom is just like fight between Ram and Ravan, and the villagers must support it because it is solid and highly religious. In this background, Murthy, the hero, plans to oppose British rule in India as suggested by Mahatma Gandhi in Kanpur. The Serpent and the Rope is the masterpiece of Raja Ram, presents his Savitri as the Savitri of Satyavan. लोग अपने आप क्या करते हैं सावित्री बट क्या के पीछे का टेक्निक वही है मेरे हस्बैंड को भी राइट विथ वर्क्स एंड विथ he takes the way of salvation to the hero because he must complete his desire in the sense and he is surprised to do. The chess master and his move presents before the reader the Leela of the Supreme God as suggested by Shiva Rama, the hero of his novel. He moves here and there showing his philosophical knowledge, but when he comes in contact with his reality, he becomes aware of the final goal of life. Susan and Mary give some satisfaction with philosophical touch, but keep his physical desire burning. As the hero Shivaram presents segmented his freedom, he controls his ultimate aim of human life, attains the knowledge of self, and Shivaram takes him to his state. Musical presentations give the unique depth and heritage all the novels of Raja Ram. The novels show more meaning present in our right equal tradition and cultural resource. This approach incorporates Indian heritage and traditions and bring the novels of Raja Ram to the world. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Communities not put together only by shared geographical space or some shared common trait. It fundamentally requires some degree of shared common meaning and understanding of who we are, and that understanding comes from shared narrative. community would gradually become disintegrated and fragmented. At the same time, narratives are not permanent or fixed. They are sustained and transmitted through collective memory. And individual agency also plays a great role in negotiating, challenging, reinterpreting, and reinforcing them. Now I want to focus on theoretical grounding of my paper. So I draw upon three important theoretical perspectives on community. The first is by Ferdinand Tönnies in his book called Community and Society. A modern society is impersonal in nature and contextual. Second theorist I want to cite is Anthony Cohen. Anthony Cohen, in the symbolic construction of community, argues that community is not constructed through shared symbols. Community is constructed through shared symbols and meaning. That's the whole point of my paper, that where I emphasize upon the constitutive role of shared narratives in the formation of communities. Third theorist I have discussed is Benedict Anderson. Benedict Anderson has talked about, in his book Imagined Communities, about how shared narratives about nationalistic ideals shape and sustain even the imagined communities of a nation. Next point is about narrative and collective memory. The question is, how are these shared narratives sustained over time? In this connection, I cite Maurice Halbert's work on collective memory. He shows that memory is never purely individual. Even when we think that, okay, this is my individual memory, it's not. Because when we call purely individual memory, is shaped within some societal framework in which we live. Collective memory is therefore selective and socially constructed. I argue that there is a close relationship between collective memory and shared narrative. Collective memory is sustained and transmitted. Collective memory sustains and transmitted through shared narratives. Next point is about individual agency. Individuals are not simply passive recipients of shared narratives. They play a very active role in the sustaining and rebuilding and reforming of communities, because they challenge, they reinforce, they reinterpret, they negotiate within a community framework, and that's how these communities are produced and reproduced across time. To conclude, I propose a discursive model in which shared narratives and collective memory work together in sustaining and reforming of communities across time. Shared narratives provides community with a sense of common meaning and identity. Collective memory helps these transmit across generations. Ultimately, my paper seeks to underline the importance of narrative in understanding not only how communities are formed, but also how they endure, change, and redefine themselves across generations. That is all.
I want to share with you. It's not a question. I always believe, and I share my belief here, that what makes India India, what makes a nation. The question was why we are Hindu and why this Upadi Jampuri. My belief is, this is my belief. I have not made research on it. It is my belief only, and I have read stories and stories throughout my career. My belief is because we share the narrative of Ram and Krishna. And from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, or maybe in the past Afghanistan, or maybe far distant Bali, why we are Indian? Because we share the narrative of Ram. We share the narrative of Ram and Sita. That's all. That makes us Indian. This is my belief. It is one important thread or strand in our making. Social, individual, ethical, and history, politics.
That is what I essentially I have essentially argued in the paper, how shared narrative sustains and remake the community. Thank you for your elaborate comment. We agree.
Ma'am, may I have a question?
Yes, sir.
My question is, narratives makes communities, okay. But narratives always follows a cultural pattern or a power pattern in the society. You always follow the powerful. Then your narrative would be, feeding into the powerful. Okay. So you can't have a multiple narrative cannot coexist with that kind of a society. Because your narrative is always, once you are stepping outside the dominant, pattern, you don't have existence. Your existence itself is questioned. So how can we imagine about a new community with certain narratives?
Actually, I have talked about that in my paper about reforming of communities. Individual agency plays a very important role. Their narratives are not only interpreted but are also negotiated and challenged, and that brings a reformatory element in a community, and that is how communities are being reformed, reproduced over time across generations. Of course, like in the very first sentence I said, communities are not static entities. They are dynamic entities and they are being reproduced due to individual agency. Thank you. I hope I answered.
Actually, you can spin more and more narratives. Spin narrative. This is a technical term for in media. Spin narrative.
So ma'am, what I wanted to say is that, since we have a public sphere, we will simply say, everybody can access, everybody can share their narrative. But public sphere is not that kind of a neutral space where everybody can equally participate and share their argument. It is structured based on some power structure within society. So breaking that structure or dismantling that already existing structure and you are creating a new narrative, that is very problematic. Means that's not possible, that's not easy as we imagine it is.
How you make it? If you have the guts and the courage, you can spin narrative. You can have spin narrative. It depends on the narrative.
Thanks a lot, for your perspective on creating narrative on our existing communities. Of course, there are variable conceptions about it, and I think you could talk about it on length. But
I just want to intervene here. Only one point that I was making.
Srivita, just a minute.
Actually, I have a session to chair. Is there any
Okay, you can please continue with this.
As he was talking about how power structure that dominate a kind of narrative. Now, if I take an example, if we move into the Reformation era, when the Catholic Church was in the dominant phase, and the narrative was actually controlled by the Catholic Church. There was a counter narrative which evolved from within the Catholic Church, and we had the Protestant movement or the Reformation movement, and we saw a mass kind of movement that, for example, if we look into the case of India, specifically into the medieval ages, where we had this kind of Brahminical tradition or ritualistic tradition of worshipping God, and we have this from within the tradition, a counter narrative emerged, the narrative of the Bhakti tradition. So we see that what she was trying to talk about, that communities, this narrative, they continue to shape the communities in the course of time. It never remains the same. I had only one objection to the entire argument was assimilation of Benedict Anderson's imagined community in that scope, because what Benedict Anderson argues is something larger or different from what she was suggesting in her paper. That is what I wanted to make. But I think that the moment you start a discourse there is obviously another room of counter discourse. You leave that room, and we have historical evidence for that. And I think I have made a point in this.
Satisfied, Dr. Aziz?
Yes,
Maybe we can.
Yeah, we can go on at some other point of time. Dr. Sain Ram, if you are here, oh, very much here. Sir, you are most welcome to the dais.
Honorable dignitaries of the dais, and other delegates. Thank you, ma'am, for giving me an opportunity to talk about the topic I decided to talk. My topic is Folk Ballads of Mithila, an exploration in the context of culture. Mithila, the name itself is well known. This region has been famous since the time of Ramayana. Yes, and we all know that King Janak, whose daughter was Sita. So since that time, Mithila region has been famous, and its area starts from the Himalayas in the north to the Ganges in the south. After that, some area beyond that also. In the western side, beyond Muzaffarpur also, and in the eastern side, Bengal and Koshi, something like that. That area is there. And this region has been very much famous for its rich cultural heritage. The Vedic culture, if preserved anywhere, is only found in Mithilanchal. And that culture is not found in anywhere in India, or you can say the world. That is preserved. Even despite the invasions from the English and other tribes, other religious communities, this culture has been intact in the area of Bhutan. People are very much stick to their own cultural setup, their own tradition, folk tales, folk songs, folk ballads, folk dance, folk art also, because we all know that the famous Madhubani painting, yes, Mithila painting, famous throughout the world. So ballads, I don't think nowadays anyone could have seen any ballad singer anywhere. Yes, anyone? No. In my time also, yes, I used to go to listen, and my father used to compel me to go back from there, not to listen to such things. Because it was considered that these are the things of the common people, those who have to study, who have to go for job or for some other purpose, they should not learn such things. Yes. So I was not allowed to go and listen to any ballad singer whenever they came on the occasion of Durga Puja or some other occasions, yes, or other festivities. Yes, I was not allowed. Even for watching folk dance or folk, dance form, which is called dance in Maithili language. Yes, we were not allowed to go to watch because that continued whole night and up to the morning also. Yes, so we were not allowed for that also. But real artists we found in them. When we, yes, here Maligram Yadav is there who was assigned by me with some topic of cocktail only. Yes, and he's continuing the research on cocktails of Bihar especially, and Mithila also he got in that. So folk ballad singer used to come to some communities, some persons on some specific occasion used to sing with musical instrument, mridangam especially, mridangam. Yes, and used to sing the songs of heroes and heroines who were legendary figures. In some communities, or in some cases, they were considered to be the deities of some cult or community. Yes, in Mithilanchal. Somewhere you will find some temple also related to those persons, those legendary figures. Though there are many, they used to, and that was an oral tradition, folk song. Nowhere I found in written form earlier. Yes, now some are trying to chart the story only, not the real form in which they sang earlier. Yes, and that was transferred from generation to generation in oral form only. Like cocktails. If Maligram has done this cocktails also, they got transmitted from generation to generation in oral tradition, oral form only. Folk ballad also, those heroic deeds of the great persons, yes, legendary figures, sung by those people with the help of the musical instrument mridangam, and people used to listen and enjoy. Some ballads are related to the legendary figures like a Than or Than. In simple term, Than, that is known as Than, and there is a temple of Salhe people, and that's why they became Kusma Malin was beloved. Yes,